Good morning, good morning. Here we are, chapter 6 of Prophecy Key to the Future. It is the establishment of New Jerusalem. All right, so last time we finished up on the conflicts inside the United States and, actually, more importantly, the establishment of the political kingdom of God. That one was interesting because there's a lot of prophecies about it rolling forward, and so they were double dipping on the prophecy about Daniel with the stone rolling forward to consume the whole world. I say double dipping because I've heard that used for the church, whereas these prophecies about the political kingdom of God also use it. Either way, I kind of consider it very similar. And there was nothing that said force was needed, nor was it excluded, but there were intimations that the political kingdom of God would come through voluntary association, which I would hope is there's a lot more of that. Because having to defend ourselves by force, even, that's not a fun thing. It causes a lot of hard things to happen. But I will let it be the way that God needs it to be. All right, the establishment of New Jerusalem. This is one I'm interested in. During the internal conflict in the United States, but after many of the cities have fallen and mobocracy has gained control, it is expected that the saints in the Rocky Mountains will prepare to journey eastward and redeem the promised land of Zion. This land, centering at Independence, Jackson County, Missouri, has been regarded as the final gathering place for the Latter-day Saints since the early days of the church. Though they were driven from their homes in Missouri over 100 years ago, the saints still anticipate the time when they will be called to return to reclaim their lost possessions and establish a city of Zion in righteousness. A leader like unto Moses is to be chosen. The Doctrine and Covenants speaks of a leader like unto Moses who will be chosen by God to lead the people in the redemption of Zion. Quote, "Behold, I say unto you, the redemption of Zion must needs come by power." That's a good question of by what power. I would say God's power, but let's keep reading the quote. "Therefore I will raise up unto my people a man who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel." Yeah, see, God's power. "For ye are the children of Israel, and out of the seed of Abraham, and ye must needs be let out of bondage by power, and with a stretched out arm." That's Doctrine and Covenants 103, 15 through 17. During the early days of the church, and especially during the period shortly after the saints came to the West, there was a great deal of speculation concerning the identity of the future leader. A statement by Orson Pratt demonstrates the possibilities which have been considered. Quote, so this is Orson Pratt. "Indeed, before we can go back to inherit this land in all its fullness of perfection, God has promised that he would raise up a man like unto Moses. Who this man will be, I do not know. It may be a person with whom we are entirely unacquainted. It may be one of our infant children. It may be some person not yet born. It may be someone of middle age. But suffice it to say that God will raise up such a man, and he will show forth his power through him, and through the people that he will lead forth to inherit that country, as he did through our fathers in the wilderness." While discussing the Doctrine and Covenants prophecy of a man who would be raised up by God, Pratt stated on another occasion that whether that man is now in existence, or whether it is someone yet to be born, or whether it is our present leader who has led us forth into these valleys of the mountains, whether God will grant unto us the great blessing to have life spared to lead forth his people like a Moses, we perhaps may not all know. He has done a great and wonderful work in leading forth this people into this land and building up these cities in this desert country, and I feel in my heart to say, would to God that his life may be prolonged like Moses in the days of old, who when he was 80 years old was sent forth to redeem the people of Israel from bondage. God is not under the necessity of choosing a young man. He can make a man 80 years of age, full of vigor, strength, and health. He may spare our present leader to lead this people on our return to Jackson County. But whether it be he or some other person, God will surely fulfill this promise. Whether President Young is the man or whether the Lord shall hereafter raise up a man for that purpose, we do know that when that day comes, the Lord will not only send his angels before the army of Israel, but that his presence will also be there. Journal of Discourses, for all these quotes, by the way. Some of the leaders of the church have raised the question of the possibility of Joseph Smith being resurrected to fulfill this mission. Really? In connection with his discussion of the matter, which is just cited, Orson Pratt stated, "This was given before our prophet Joseph Smith was taken out of our midst. Many of us, no doubt, thought, when that revelation was given, that Joseph would be the man. I do not know, but he will yet. God's arm is not shortened, that he cannot raise him up even from the tomb. We are living in the dispensation of the fullness of times, and the dispensation of the resurrection. And there may be some who will wake from their tombs for certain purposes, and to bring to pass certain transactions on the earth, decreed by the great Jehovah. And if the Lord sees proper to bring forth that man just before the winding up scene to lead forth the army of Israel, he will do so. And if he feels disposed to send him forth as a spiritual personage to lead the camp of Israel in the land of their inheritance, all right." To me, that's pure speculation, because he says he doesn't know. I think what it's really showing is the faith that Orson Pratt has in the Lord, that should anyone be called, including Joseph, he knows that the Lord could do it. I don't think that that's the way the Lord will do it for two reasons. One, it's not his pattern. I think the Lord would want to raise up someone new, only because it again gives them an opportunity to show their faith in God and all the people who follow the person who God raises up. I think it's much more likely and more powerful for it to be that way, because it helps people rise up greater than they were. Like, if you raise up someone who's already been great, to have people follow someone who's already been great, it's not as great as faith that's needed to follow them, right? That's my take on it. But to me, this is a great statement by Orson Pratt about the faith that he has in God to be able to lead however God wants to lead. Because if God calls up Joseph Smith, sure, that could happen, whether that's a spirit or resurrected or whatever else. But to me, I personally don't think that will be the way it is, just because the pattern of God in the past. But it's all up to the Lord, not me. All right. Another of the early apostles, Erastus Snow, was of the opinion that Joseph would be resurrected long before Christ's coming in glory in 1884, after telling how the prophet and others had fulfilled a mission preaching the spirit world. He spoke of a future mission they would fulfill. Erastus Snow, after telling how the prophet and others fulfilled the mission preaching the spirit world, he spoke of a future mission they'd fulfill. Okay. Let's see what Erastus Snow has to say. "The next mission will be to come and prepare the way in Zion and in her stakes and in the temples of our God, for turning the key of the resurrection of the dead, and to bring forth those that are asleep, and to exalt them among the gods. And who will be first and foremost? Why, he whom God has chosen and placed first and foremost to hold the keys of this last dispensation. How long will it be? It is not given to me to say the month, the day, the hour, but it is given to me to say that that time is nigh at hand. The time is drawing near, much nearer than scarcely any of us can now comprehend. when Joseph Smith will be clothed upon with immortality, when his brother Hiram will be clothed upon with immortality, when the martyrs will be raised from the dead together with their faithful brethren, who have performed a good mission in that spirit world, they too will be called to assist in the work of the glorious resurrection. The Lord Jesus, who was the first fruits of the dead, the first fruits of them that sleep, and who holds the keys of the resurrection, will bring to pass the resurrection of the prophet Joseph and his brethren, and will set them to the work at bringing about the resurrection of their brethren, as he has set them to work in all other branches of the labor from the beginning. Again, this is prophecy about resurrection, not about leading back to Jackson County. So this, I will say, sure, why not? I would think Jesus would kick things off, but if he kicks things off by then getting Joseph Smith, sure, that's no problem. To me, it does not matter who he starts with. So I think he's clumping Orson Pratt's statement of faith next to this one, just because they have the same subject matter. But this second one definitely does not have to do with returning to Jackson County, Missouri, and establishing New Jerusalem with Joseph at the head. It's just saying that Joseph is the one who's going to work on resurrection. I'm going to be very plain about that. Right, after telling his belief that the resurrection of the prophet was not too far away, Elder Snow emphasized that this would be before the Lord appears in the temple. Footnote, this is apparently Christ's appearance in the temple at New Jerusalem. For a discussion of this appearance, see the next chapter. So before the Lord appears in the temple, before the Savior is coming in glory. Quote, so I guess this is still further Erastus Snow. And the Lord Jesus will appear and show himself unto his servants in his temple in holy places, to counsel and instruct and direct. He will appear in his glory of his Father, in the glory of his Father, in his resurrected body, among those who can endure his presence and glory. And all this I expect long before he will waste away and destroy the wicked from off the face of the earth. So again, if he is expecting it before the wicked are taken from the earth, then the question means if the internal conflicts and the wars of utter destruction are helping to destroy the wicked, but we're supposed to go after that's all started and going, is it just during that time? This is why when he says, I expect, and other things like that, I'm not sure on the timing. I can understand people being moved upon by the Holy Ghost to speak prophetic things, but both timing and place, we've got to consider. Heber C. Kimball also believed and prophesied that Joseph Smith would return before the second coming of the Lord, and associated his return with this period. After prophesying of the destruction which would sweep the western portion of Missouri, he foresaw that, quote, the pressure will become so great that the more righteous among them will cry unto the Lord day and night until deliverance comes. That I have no problem with. Then the prophet Joseph and others will make their appearance, and those who have remained faithful will be selected to return to Jackson County, Missouri, and take part in the upbuilding of that beautiful city, the New Jerusalem. Prophetic Sayings of Heber C. Kimball by Amanda H. Wilcox. So, making their appearance again. A question about what type of appearance. Resurrected to lead the people like Moses? Doesn't sound like it. Appearance to help lead, guide, direct? Sounds like it. Thus, the authorities of the church will have anticipated the rising up of a leader who will guide the saints in their establishment of the New Jerusalem, and several have expressed the thought that this person may be Joseph Smith as a resurrected being. Suffice it to say, the Latter-day Saints expect to return to Jackson County under inspired leadership and with power. So, That I agree with. So here's my thing: is also Orson Pratt was obviously very well heard among the saints, and so if people were asking him this, I'm wondering if they took his dictation of faith about Joseph Smith and anticipated it, were influenced by him. So that's kind of the things that I'm thinking about. But either way, whether it's fulfilled by Joseph Smith or not, we'll be led back in power and like Moses. And I would, to me, that screams that it is going to be by someone who has been given the faith and power to accomplish that. To, is it going to be literally parting the Red Seas? Nah. I mean, between the Rocky Mountains and Missouri, you've got a river at best, a trickle otherwise, and the North Platte River isn't too bad. There are parts where it gets pretty scanty out in the plains and as you near the mountains. But anyway, I would think that it'd be more along the lines of like Enoch, where if God is guiding it, like when they say like Moses and with power, that's very ambiguous. Does that mean that the Lord will lead them in by pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day? Possibly. Does it mean that he will have great power to turn the environment on the enemies? That I'd say more likely, just because it's like if it's supposed to be during this time that there's all these problems, then, why not do as the Lord did with the Pharaoh and his people. Sorry, I was trying to think about if you were someone who was a prophet. This is another serious question for you. If you were a prophet with power, given that power to upend the land and other things like that, how much would you use it? Now remember, the children of Israel passed through the desert on foot. And Moses used miraculous power at certain times to help provide food, to help provide water, and to split the Red Sea. But he didn't change the environment to make the road perfectly straight. He just used his prophetic and divinely given power for miracles when it was necessary. So I was just sitting here thinking of the Saints' westward journey and things like going over Rocky Ridge or Martin's Cove, where it was horrific conditions, and yet the saints endured it well. There's many miracles and stories that came from that time. But the way was not smooth. They did not sit there and flatten every hill in their way and break up every stone that could dash their foot on it. It really was just when things were needed is when Moses called upon God, and God was willing to provide miracles. So, anyways, this is interesting. Okay. I mean, during that time, even the most faithful will be crying unto the Lord by day and night. Hopefully they wouldn't be grumbling like the children of Israel, but they would be thankful and maybe pestering the leadership. Be like, please bring us water. Please. Sorry, I was just thinking about that. So, we will be expected to return under the inspired leadership and with power. I'll agree. The eastward journey of the saints while strife continues in the United States. All right, so now he's trying to place it in time. After the decision to return to Jackson County has been made, it is anticipated that the saints will make the eastward journey as a group, Orson Pratt gave a colorful description of the Saints' return. Quote, "We shall go back to Jackson County. When we go back, there will be a very large organization consisting of thousands and tens of thousands, and they will march forward, the glory of God overshadowing their camp by day in the form of a cloud and a pillar of flame by night, and the Lord's voice being uttered forth before his army. Will not this produce terror upon all the nations of the earth? Will not the armies of this description, though they may not be as numerous as the armies of the world, cause a terror to fall upon all nations? The Lord says, the banner of Zion shall be terrible." Journal of Discourses. And what he's referring to is prophecies and Doctrine and Covenants about them being terrible. It would appear that this description is an interpretation of Isaiah 4, 5 through 6. An interpretation is perhaps inappropriate as a description of the journey, at least though his comment indicates the magnitude of the undertaking and that the members of the church will be organized into a single group. On another occasion, he said that there may be a few individuals go to prepare the way to purchase a little more land and get things in order. But when that is accomplished, this people as a body will return to that land, the Lord going with them. A vision recorded by Joseph Smith was given to his scribe in Kirtland Temple, in which the armies of heaven protecting the saints in their return to Zion were seen. It would seem that if the saints will need the protection of a heavenly army, and the eastward journey will take place during the period of internal strife, this was certainly Orson Pratt's belief. Well then, to return to the prophesying, when the time shall come that the Lord shall waste away this nation, he will give commandment to this people to return and possess their own inheritance, which they purchased some 44 years ago in the state of Missouri. A little bit longer than that right now, but sure. A statement apparently made by Joseph Smith in 1843 seems to fix the time of the saints' return to Missouri as the era of internal strife. He said, "When you see this land bound with iron, you may look toward Jackson County." Prophecy recorded by Edward Rushton, Theodore Turley. So that's Joseph Smith. Joseph F. Smith expressed his view also that this will be a time of strife and that the saints may have to defend themselves from foes on the right hand and on the left. When God leads the people back to Jackson County, how will he do it? Let me picture to you how some of us may be gathered and led to Jackson County. I think I see 200,000 or 300,000 people wending their way across the Great Plain, enduring the nameless hardships of the journey, herding and guarding their cattle by day and by night, and defending themselves and little ones from foes on the right hand and on the left. And when they came here, they will find the journey back to Jackson County will be as real as when they came out here. Now mark it. And though you may be led by the power with God with a stretched out arm, it will not be more manifest than the leading of the people out here to those that participate in it. They will think there are a great many hardships to endure in this manifestation of the power of God, and it will be left, perhaps, to their children to see the glory of their deliverance, just as it is left for us to see the glory of our former deliverance from the hands of those that sought to destroy us. And they have the diagram of the Missouri River going right through the middle of Missouri, Jackson County, right there. So, that's an interesting one, because, it is my belief that it will happen during strife. Whether it's specifically internal strife and people have to defend ourselves as we go along, I don't know. I think the world might be distracted by other greater wars and such. Or maybe that's just personally for me. But we'll see. It would seem, then, that the return of Jackson County will be the period of internal wars, and that the saints will encounter opposition during their journey. Of interest also is the fact that, though this prophetic description was uttered long after the coming of the railroad, he does not envision modern transportation methods as being used in the journey. Instead, the people will be herding and guarding their cattle by the way. This prediction might be regarded as an indication of a great destruction of this nation's roads and transportation system during the period of internal strife. This interpretation is borne out perhaps by a vision attributed to Wilford Woodruff, in which he reportedly saw various sections of the United States as it was being engulfed by a terrible disease. Speaking of the area just west of Omaha, Nebraska, the account states, quote, "As I passed along my way east, I saw a road full of people, mostly women, which is what they could carry on bundles on their back, traveling to the mountains on foot. I wondered how they could get through with such a small pack on their back. It was remarkable to me that there were so few men among them. It did not seem to me as though the cars were running. The railroads looked rusty and abandoned." When he talks about cars, he's talking about, you have to understand, whenever you think car in a prophetic vision is anachronistic, car was used for the railroad before it was used for the modern automobile. That's why it's in conjunction with that the cars, the railroad cars, were not running. The rails looked rusty and abandoned. The vision attributed to Wilford Woodruff, as quoted by Robert W. and Elizabeth A. Smith, The Last Days, Salt Lake City Pyramid Press, 1948. I have thoughts on that. We'll see. We'll see what comes. No, it makes sense. Like, how long can gasoline last, right? Like, unless you have a large storage tank for yourself alone, which I don't think anyone has. Let's say you have a few 5-gallon cans of gasoline. That'll fill up your car basically once more. If your car is full, when great calamities start to happen. Like, I've often wondered this, like, in a scenario where you have maybe nuclear bombs going off and EMPs, and let's say the electronics on your car survives, but as soon as manufacturing stops, especially that of gasoline, what are you left with? A car that might run for maybe a month, depending on how often you use it. You have maybe a few gas cans full of gas that, again, once you refill your car one more time, and if you're trying to do a long journey, how far will that get you? Most of us don't have cattle, by the way. So, here's another thing that I think of when it comes to prophetic visions. There are times when the visions that we receive are meant to be knowledge for us, or using ideas and symbolism for us. So, he had rail cars, and the rails were rusted. That might be an allegory for all modern transportation, as the book brings out. When he's talking about cattle, it might just mean our living foodstuffs. So whether that's the food that we would carry with us, or the food that we would transport with us, or maybe we had established a way of making our food in the Rocky Mountains, and that we were sending them however it was supposed to be. So I'm wondering if some of it may be allegorical, but we'll see when we get there. Though the trip eastward is expected to be a perilous journey, the following statement by Orson Pratt describes the peaceable manner in which he expects the saints will proceed. He also explains that the group returning will be made up of the wives and children, as well as the elders of Israel. So, families. Quote, "Perhaps you may inquire if we expect to return as a majority. Yes. Do we expect to return as a great people? Yes. Do we expect to return with our wives and our children? Yes. Do we expect to return in a peaceable manner? Of course. Have you ever seen any other feeling on the part of a Latter-day Saint only to promote peace wherever they may settle. What has been our object from the commencement? Peace and goodwill to all men. Thank heavens. Many saints will remain in the West. Although it is anticipated that tens of thousands of the saints will travel eastwards, Brigham Young made it clear that not all will journey to Jackson County. Many members of the church will remain behind and maintain their homes in the Western Mountains. Are we going back to Jackson County? Yes. When? As soon as the way opens up. Are we all going? Oh, no, of course not. The country is not large enough to hold our present numbers. When we do return there, will there be any less remaining in these mountains than the number today? No, there may be 100 then for every single one that is there now. It is folly in men to suppose that we are going to break up our hard-earned homes to make others in new country. Orson Pratt agreed that there will be saints in both places. We do not expect that when the time shall come that all Latter-day Saints who now occupy the mountain valleys will go in one consolidated body, leaving this land totally without inhabitants. We do not expect any such thing, but we do expect that there will be a period of future history of the church when many hundreds of this people, our youth, for instance, who will grow up in those days when they will be consolidated as a body and will go to the eastern portions of the state of Kansas and also to the western portions of the state of Missouri to settle. Journal of Discourses for these, by the way. There was this one from Brigham Young, where it says, it's folly for men to suppose that we're going to break up these hard-earned homes to make others a new country. There's more information in the footnote. It said, herein seems to lie the explanation for the prophetic statement made by Joseph Smith. Quote, the church, will fill the Rocky Mountains. There will be tens of thousands of Latter-day Saints who will be gathered in the Rocky Mountains, and there they will open the door for the establishing of the gospel among the Lamanites who will receive the gospel and their endowments and the blessings of God. This people will go into the Rocky Mountains. They will build up temples to the Most High. They will raise up a posterity there, and the Latter-day Saints who dwell in these mountains will stand in the flesh until the coming of the Son of Man. The Son of Man will come to them while in the Rocky Mountains. C.R. April 1897, page 57. So I think he's pointing out with that footnote that he's saying that the Lord will come to the members of the church in the Rocky Mountains to bring them back to Jackson County, I think is what he's suggesting. All right, let's finish up this. But he said that we are expected that the mountains will not be the residence of all Latter-day Saints. We expect that the great majority of people will emigrate. Those chosen to make the journey are expected to be the most worthy and best prepared, who, as C. Kimball said, do right and honor their calling. Yeah. But there's so many unknowns. Like, here's what I mean. Okay, let's say we're supposed to go east during a time of great strife. As long as there's enough manufacturing or enough ability to use things like automobiles and cars, we could do that quite easily in just a few days. On the other hand, if we have to return on foot, by cart, that's a whole different matter entirely. The reason it's so different is because how do you get there without support and supplies along the way? It would be like a reverse Mormon trail. And you have to understand that the trail follows along the Platte River. It goes to these historical areas that had forts, that had trading posts, that had places where you could work and resupply and work on whether it was a hand cart or whether it was a hand cart or a wagon, right? There's a... It's kind of like paradox of sending a rocket into space. The more mass that you want to put on the rocket, the more fuel you have to spend to get it up there. And it takes a lot more fuel than the payload to get there. And so when I sit here and think, okay, if you have something like a wagon, akin to a wagon, that you're trying to use to get back to Missouri, who's going to pull it? Right? Okay, let's say it's something akin to a hand cart. Well, we'd have to really learn how to make hand carts again and be able to use them effectively. And that those hand carts, then, what are you filling it with? You're probably going to have to wear your most durable clothes, which, heavens to Betsy, this modern day stuff is not exactly made for durability. Like, it's literally just made to look good-ish. Last a year, maybe 2. And then just disintegrate. Gene, I remember in all these historical stuff, denim and jeans were like ticketed as being like really strong material. And now I'm like, as soon as you split the knee on jeans now, they just fall apart. So anyway, sorry, I'm thinking of practical things for the journey of maybe we'd have to have different spots along the way to help people resupply, get food, get water, build it up as they go along, and continue to maintain it and help others maintain it. I would think that such an exodus, again, people coming to the mountain valleys of Salt Lake City took years. There was a wonderful museum, I think it was in Jackson County, where it showed the emigration routes the Saints took to go from Missouri and Nauvoo to get to the Salt Lake Valley. Whether that was by ship from England and Denmark, whether it was direct east and then going west, or whether it was going around South America to go from San Diego and San Francisco, to the east to get to the Rocky Mountains. Thank you, Mormon Battalion. All that. It was continuous for several years. So, I don't know. They talk about moving as a great body, some staying behind. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm just thinking of the logistics of it. Establishing the New Jerusalem under the law of consecration. Ooh, that is going to be a good one. Ooh, yeah, we still got plenty of time, or plenty of material. It is expected by many that the saints, as they arrive in Kansas and Missouri, will find the site of their New Jerusalem desolate, barren, and uninhabited. I don't think I agree with that. But in the chapter dealing with the judgments of God will pour out upon the earth, chapter 3, prophecies that were cited that God will visit the area in judgment and that there will be no owners left to occupy the country, and that Jackson County will be swept so clean of its inhabitants that there will not be left so much as a yellow dog to wag his tail. Again, that's something that is recycled from hearing the earlier prophet. And the earlier prophet, it could be referring to political opposition. I am not certain that it will be swept clean of inhabitants. I understand that this book pushes that, and a lot of other LDS, Second Coming Watch YouTube channels push the idea that it's going to be wiped clean. I don't think it's necessary for it to be wiped clean, because to me, there's a lot of saints that are in Missouri that felt compelled to be called there. Will they remain? I would hope so. In a vision attributed to Wilford Woodruff, he was shown the condition of this area of the land at the time of the laying of the New Jerusalem temple cornerstone, and recorded that I seem to be standing on the left bank of the Missouri and Illinois, and all of Iowa were a complete desert with no living being there. Whoa. Wow. Okay. Wow. The repopulating of this land, with a group of many thousands of saints arriving all at once, will undoubtedly be a great challenge to the leadership of the Church. The dividing up the land and the appointment of sites need to be carefully governed and directed. It appears that this will be carried out under the communal living system known in the Church as the United Order or Law of Consecration. I would love to find a good book on how they lived the United Order. So if you go to Zion National Park in southern Utah, it's like if you take the bottom border of Utah, go right to the middle, you got about Zion's National Park right about there. So as you enter it, you can, in a car, there's a point where you have to park your car and use like a shuttle bus to take you up to the different places inside Zion Canyon. But in access to the car, you can go up this winding road and up through a mountain, which is this really cool spot. And if you keep going, there's this beautiful canyon to go through. It's gorgeous. Highly recommend. Must do again. But it will take you straight to Orderville. And there are stories of Orderville that I know which are really funny and cool. One is that they were all living the law of consecration really well and everything like that, and they were going to have a youth dance for the kids, young men, young women's, basically, mutual. And some of the young men were like, crap, all I have is these old pants of mine. I need to get new ones. And so they would purposefully rub up against the machinery, like the mill, to scuff up their pants so they could say, oh, no, I need to get new pants for this dance. And they're like, guys, we know what you're doing. Stop destroying your pants, please. We'll get you new pants. Just stop it. That's the long and short of it. There's I'm sure, better details with it. The other is that the U.S. government had to stop in to end consecration among Orderville because they didn't know how to tax it, basically. And again, I'm just retelling this from memory. This may not be I may not be the most reliable source, but this is what I remember. That the U.S. government had to step in because they didn't know how to tax it. They didn't know how to deal with it. It didn't fit in their way of doing things. And so they came in and decided to stop how and what they were doing and auction off everything. And, they expected it to get plenty of money and revenue from this because people bidding on it for the better stuff. And they ended up getting practically nothing because all those who were there who could bid and would bid on things was the residents of Orderville. And basically, as they auctioned off Brother Smith's plot of land to whoever wanted it, they basically said, no, we're only going to let Brother Smith buy it back for like $1. And then same thing with Brother Jones and his stewardship. And his stewardship and his farm, just $1. And so that everyone got their property back. It's just under their own name instead of the entire, communal Orderville. Now, the reason I would really love to know about this is because it's been pointed out communes, like literal communism, doesn't work. People become extremely jealous. It falls apart. They have to return back to a capitalistic way of thinking and way of doing things where personal property, personal ownership is the incentive that keeps people going. Because why should someone labor all day and do all the work while everyone else gets the fruit of his labor? That's what causes the downfall of all these communes. There was a recent YouTube video by John Stossel that shows that that's exactly what has happened. Notably absent from this was Orderville. But at the same time, I don't think living the law of consecration is the same thing as these commune or communist societies. This is why I want to know the specifics of how did they do it. Because to me, you either have to have literal angels of people living in there who all will work as hard as they can. But that's the conflict of incentives doesn't do that well. What I would think is that if everyone has their stewardship, so they may not technically own it, but it is considered their stewardship. It is considered almost like their personal property. And that the more that they can produce, the more that they are given. So it still retains the semblance of capitalism through aggrandizing stewardships according to ability. But it means that the production can be used, or the excess can be given to the community, I think would be a great way of doing it. Because what it comes down to is it reduces the inverse incentives, right? Because inverse incentives is where you are rewarded for doing the thing you don't want other people to be doing. Like, if you are rewarding people for being lazy, that's a bad thing. That's an inverted incentive. So that means that people are like, oh, I'm too sick, and oh, I can't do this, and oh, but I'm still getting everything else that everyone else does. Yay! That's bad. On the other hand, if the proper incentive is you will get more as you produce more, then that incentivizes people to work harder. So the only main things that you would need to get rid of in a society like that is jealousy, is like, imagine the people of God after in the Book of Mormon in 4th Nephi. They lived in harmony one with another, and they shared all things in common, is how it's stated. But it's kind of matter-of-factly, and there's no information on it. But later on, divisions occur because of people wanting to have more than others, of wanting to show off their wealth and excess over others. And that's where divisions arise after hundreds of years. So to me, it seems like you should learn to be grateful with less, be willing to sacrifice the desire to have these greater and better things, or work on being able to work as a community so that you don't have jealousy and covetousness. So that when, Brother Smith Jones, who has 7 kids and a much larger property and is taking care of it all, whereas you have a small farmhouse and a small stead and a small stewardship, and you have like 3 kids and etc., that you're still grateful no matter what size you have. That you're not like, no, this is my stewardship, I'm grateful for it. And if you can make it bigger and grander, then you can make it bigger and grander. It's up to you how far you want to go. That kind of deal. I would think you would have to be patterned along those lines, because you want at all costs to avoid reversed incentives. Okay. Vision attributed to Wilford Woodruff, that it'll be a great desert. The repopulating this land with a group of many thousand saints, appointment sites, carefully governed and directed. Okay. The repopulating the land with a group of many thousands of saints arriving all at once would undoubtedly be a great challenge to leadership, the church. The dividing up of the land and apportionment of sites will need to be carefully governed and directed. It appears that this will be carried out under the communal living system in the church as the united order or law of consecration. That's where I ended. In the law of consecration, every participating Latter-day Saint recognizes that the earth is the Lord's and consecrates himself and all his property to God. He then becomes a steward over a portion of the Lord's property, as an heir in the system that has a right to draw upon the storehouse to develop and expand his stewardship. An allotment of land and other materials is apportioned to him to develop on basis of the size of his family, his branch of business, and so forth. The church gives him financial help to establish and expand his farm or business, but his progress is subject to yearly supervision and review by the bishop. People live in family units and eat at their own tables. It is held by Latter-day Saints that a faithful and wise steward of the Lord's property will eventually receive his stewardship as an eternal inheritance. According to Orson Pratt, when the return to Missouri takes place, the law of consecration will immediately be put into full force and will be used in the distribution of property. See, this is what I'm talking about. Just imagine if you literally had a fully functioning capitalist system, essentially. But everyone understands that even though all of this, all of my property, all of my houses, buildings, etc., is truly the church's. And it is my honor and duty to expand my stewardship so that I'm not an unprofitable servant, and so that I'm building the community, so that I'm worthy of my share. Then you're basically, there's only a few things that are tweaked. You're not reversing those things. Because I just sit there and think of, well, I literally was able to go to Nauvoo recently. There's not many buildings left. There's the brick buildings, but all the log cabins that are there, they're gone. They're gone. But I just think of that. Now it would be a small town or city. But at the time, it was one of the largest in Illinois. It rivaled the size of Chicago, which is crazy for the time. But that was for that time. And I'm sure everyone had to have money to do things like normal. The only difference was this understanding that we're talking about, which makes sense. Anyway. All right. You know what? I think I'm going to call it here because there's still a lot more. Orson Pratt will be talking about returning to Missouri. Well, let me just finish off this section. It's a little bit longer, but I can do it. According to Orson Pratt, when the return to Missouri takes place, the law of consecration will be immediately put into full force and will be used in the distribution of property. Quote, "There is one thing certain, something that you and I may depend upon, with as much certainty as we expect to get our daily food, and that is, the Lord our God will take this people back and select from among this people a sufficient number to make the army of Israel very great. And when that day comes, he will guide the forces of those who emigrate to their possessions in those two states that I have mentioned. And the land thus purchased will be, no doubt, as far as possible, located in one district of country, which will be settled very differently from the way we now settle up these mountain regions. You may ask, in what respect shall they differ in settling up those countries when we go there to fulfill the commandment of the Lord? I will tell you. No man in those localities will be permitted to receive his stewardship on those lands unless he is willing to consecrate all his properties to the Lord. That will be among the first teachings given. In that day, the whole of our properties, amounting to a very much larger sum, will be held in trust. For whom? For the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and for all this great company that will be gathered together. The combined resources of the saints, when they consecrate it to the church at this time, will, it seems, be a great sum. The Latter-day Saints will apparently have more than sufficient funds to purchase additional lands for settlement and build their cities. In the words of Orson Pratt, quote, "Now, when the time comes for purchasing this land, we will have means. How this means will be brought about is not for me to say. Perhaps the Lord will open up mines containing gold and silver, or in some other way as seemeth to him best. Wealth will be poured into the laps of the Latter-day Saints till they will scarcely know what to do with it. I will here again prophesy on the strength of former revelation, that there are not people on the face of the whole globe, not excepting London, Paris, New York, or any of the great mercantile cities of the globe. There are no people now upon the face of the earth so rich as the Latter-day Saints will be in a few years to come. Having their millions, therefore, they will purchase. We've got more than millions now. There's something called the stock market. Therefore, they will purchase the land to build up cities, towns, and villages, build a great capital city at headquarters in Jackson County, Missouri." Which, again, I sit here and scratch my chin and go, wait a minute, wait. I thought there was a time during a time of calamity. So, this is what makes me scratch my head, is that, again, I see so many prophecies that are talked about in this book already being fulfilled. And is there something I can help with?
I need to go to work soon.
Soon? I thought you went at about 8:30.
No, I'm teaching junior high today.
When do you need to be there?
I need to be there by like 7:30, but I need to be early to...
Okay, I'm just finishing this section up. So, And she was giving me this ghost as she went by. She was staring at me as she went by my room. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I scratched my head and go, wait a minute. Okay, so how are we supposed to buy all this land if all the government's already gone anyway, and people are wiped from it? What are we purchasing? If there are no inhabitants, isn't it just purchased by right of us going there and improving the land? Read Basti, it's the law. I'm not joking. Read it. It's like an extremely small book. It was a pamphlet back in the day, but pamphlets back in the day were large for, we consider pamphlets as like a one sheet of paper. Back then, pamphlets were larger, but they weren't book size. They were small book size. Read Basti, it's the law. It makes perfect sense. It's a beautiful book. And it's so cool. But he basically makes the point that if no one's there and you improve upon the land, then the work of your labor and your hands is yours. And that's what makes the right of the land to be yours, is by use and improvement of it. Anyways, Joseph Smith also reported that the temple in Jackson County will be built in this generation. The saints will think there will not be time to build it, but with all the help you will receive, you can put up a great temple quickly. Oh yeah, we're getting good at that. They will have all the gold, silver, and precious stones, for these things only will be used for the beautifying of the temple. Again, if there's no use for money because of the collapse of things, that makes sense. All the skilled mechanics you want. Oh, I really hope so. I hope all the skilled engineers and architects from the church will be able to build a wonderful temple in Jackson County. A conflict seems to exist between these statements and the prophecies quoted in chapter 3, which say that Jackson County at that time will be without inhabitants. See what I mean? It would appear that in any instance in which the saints will be able to find owners to whom they can make restitution, they will be ready and willing to do so. It should be remembered, of course, that much of the land originally belonged to the saints. The establishment of the law of consecration will apparently be a necessity, for it is a celestial law, and that the Lord has said that Zion cannot be built up unless it is by the principles of the law of the celestial kingdom. Otherwise, I cannot receive her unto myself. Though the law will not be established in full until the New Jerusalem is established, Orson Pratt taught that before the saints go back to Missouri, there will be an approximation to it here in these mountains. We will learn a great many pure principles to enable us to carry out the law as far as we possibly can under the circumstances that we are placed here. On another occasion, he explained that while the Lord will help the saints to prepare to live the law of consecration while they are still in the West, he did not feel the full law will be lived until the saints arrived in Missouri. We are definitely not even close to living the full law of consecration here in the West. I would think that if this is supposed to be during times of calamity, etc., and people come here and have to be established and government is broken down, that's when it will basically have to start being established. But again, it's according to what the narrative, that's according to what the narrative of the book is trying to string together. Is there a necessity of being able to do that beforehand? Again, with how much we're already treading on the toes of a lot of these, I don't know, maybe. It very much could be fulfilled in very calamitous ways. At the same time, I'm like, yeah, we're kind of like right at the doorstep there. Like, we're like stepping through. They keep saying it's at the doorstep so much. It's like, no, like we're seeing it. So, quote, if you cannot deal justly in relation to these small amounts, how is it to be expected that you will perform the pure law of God, the law of consecration? I tell you, we have got to begin and attend faithfully to these small things. But when we are first born into his kingdom, we cannot run alone. We are not able to practice and trot and caper about. He has therefore ordained certain helps and governments and laws to govern us while we are in the creeping state and trying to advance into a more perfect order of things. This perpetual emigrating fund is one of the things that helps, ordained to assist us in our imperfect and weak state. By and by, when the full law of God comes in force, these helps can then be dispensed with. When that will be, I do not know. But I have an idea that will not be until we get back to Jackson County. For the Lord has told us in one revelation, in substance as follows: let these laws I have given concerning my people in Jackson County be fulfilled after the redemption of Zion. Lorenzo Snow also taught that an approximation of the law of consecration would be necessary while the saints are still in the mountains, and said that they shall not be permitted to enter the land from whence we were expelled till our hearts are prepared to honor this law, and we become sanctified through the practice of truth. I agree. The united order to which the saints will enter into Missouri will provide not only for the needs of individuals and families, but also for public construction and community purpose. In describing this facet of the benefits of living law of consecration, Orderstrom Pratt explained. Revelation says, quote, "They shall give unto the storehouse all that is not needed for the support of the needy families. In this way, the Lord's storehouse will be full and in great abundance, and these means will be used for public purposes, and also by way of providing farming implements, books, etc., for the remnants of Joseph who will come into the covenant in those days, that they may also have their stewardships in the midst of the people of God. There will be a portion of the avails of those stewardships that will be consecrated to the Lord's storehouse, and which will be used for the building of temples and for beautifying of public places in the city of New Jerusalem, and making that city of perfection as nearly as we possibly can." All right, that's the end of the section. I'm going to have to stop there. So, I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff that I sit there and think about. I would hope to see the time of Zion being built up. I would hope to be one of those building it up. And I hope it is not in my old age, so I can be one who I can put my hand to the plow, so to speak. But we'll see. We'll see how it all falls out. Anyways, think about what makes the law of consecration different from other commune or communist or utopian societies that have all failed. I do want that understanding of how the law of consecration will work and be the right incentives to work, to establish it for it to win, so that people will not balk at it, that people will accept it and be willing to contribute to it and not have reversed incentives, and so that it can be established and maintained. I want people to find out about that. I want people to be dwelling on it, thinking about it. That way they or the generations after them will be able to enter into it with eyes wide open, to understand the fullness of it, and to accept it, and to enjoy the blessings of it. So with that, I hope you concentrate on those things or whatever else has come to your mind through the Holy Ghost, and may His Spirit be with you always.